Hello everyone, I'm Brian Seymour, Director of Instructional Technology for Pickerington Local School District. In today's Technology Snapshot, we are going to take a look at the calculator and calculator policies for the PARCC tests that we'll be having starting in February. And what we'll do is we'll look at the calculators that we'll be able to access through the online PARCC tests and what are some iPad capability compatible ones that you could download and have kids practice with. So first of all, before we get started, I really want to take a look. This is on the PARCC website. It's actually on ODE's link to PARCC. This is the calculator policy for the mathematics assessment updated in July of 2014. So the allowable calculators here on the screen. So grades 3 through 5, there is no calculators allowed at all, with the exception of students with an approved calculator accommodation, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Grades 6 through 7, they're allowed to have a 4-function calculator with square root and percentages. In 8th grade, they're allowed to have a scientific calculator. And in high school, they're allowed to have graphing calculator with functionalities consistent with a TI-84 or similar models. Okay, so just a few things that they are or not allowed to have. No calculators with computer algebra systems features are allowed. No tablets, laptops, PDAs, or phone-based calculators are allowed during the PARCC testing. Now, obviously, we're going to show you some practice ones here on the iPad, but obviously, they're not going to be able to use those during the PARCC test. What they're going to be able to use is what actually comes up on the PARCC actual tests. Students are not allowed to share calculators within a testing session. Obviously, they'll have a calculator on their test when they're able to do it. Calculators with QWERTY keyboards are not permitted, and so on. Okay, so those of you that have students with special needs, according to the PARCC Accessibility Features and Accommodations Manual, if they are allowed to have a calculator, if it's on their 504, if it's on their IEP, they will be able to have an actual handheld calculator. Christina Hall, our Director of Special Education, is currently working through that list to figure out which of those students it is. But they will be able to have that calculator depending on their IEP and 504 plan for the entire test, including the fluency part as well. That's just for those students that have that written in their IEP or in their 504. Okay? So let's take a look here now at a couple of what these calculators actually look like and what we can do with some things online or through the iPad. So here is a screenshot of what the calculator is going to look like for those of you in grades 6 or 7. So as you can see, very basic 4-function. It's got plus and minus, it's got this, and it also should have a square root button to it here. I'm not sure why it's not on that one. Those of you in 8th grade, this is what your calculator will look like. So basically a basic scientific type calculator. Okay. And then those of you that are in high school, or either junior high teaching a high school course, this is what your calculator will look like. Let me make this a little bigger here for you. Okay. So now as you can see, there's lots of different pieces and parts, so they'll have to toggle between these 3 parts here, so scientific, graphing, or regression. Unfortunately, on all the practice tests that PARCC has released so far, there is no calculator that's popping up yet. So this is the best picture that I have to be able to show you what the graphing calculator would look like for the Algebra 1 and Geometry and future Algebra 2 tests. Okay. So let's go over here now, go to the iPad, and let me show you some examples of ones that I've found that would be beneficial. So I've got 3 different calculators here. I've got Calculator X, Calculator Plus, and Free GraCal. So we'll start here with the basic one. So Calculator X. Whoops, wrong order. Let's go back. Calculator Plus is the calculator that I would recommend for those of you that are using grade 6 and grade 7. So as you can see, it's a very basic calculator. It does have the plus minus, it does have the percent, and it does have the square root. And actually, if you turn the keyboard, it actually looks really similar to the one that they'll see on PARCC if you do it in this kind of a format. We'll move it back to here so you can kind of see it a little bit better. And basically, once again, it's just a very simple calculator. I don't think I need to go into too much with this, but it works just like any other calculator would. Okay. So then moving up into grade 8, now we're getting into a scientific calculator. And this was the best one that I could find to be able to do all of what we needed it to do. Okay. So once again, just like your simple calculator that we've been using. Okay. So those were, so for grades 6 and 7, Calculator Plus, and those of you in grade 8, Calculator X. Now, the graphing calculator at the high school, and let's take a look at that screenshot one more time, is a little weird just because it bounces back and forth. You have to toggle between. So this is your scientific. If you click on graphing, which unfortunately I can't because that's just a picture, then you're going to get into the graphing portion, and then here you'd get into the regression portion of it. So unfortunately, there's nothing that I've been able to find that mirrors that in that same format. So the best one that I've been able to find that's free is this one here, which is called Free Grav Cal. And the reason I kind of like this one is because you do have to toggle back and forth between some certain things. Once again, this is free, so you're getting some ads that pop into it. But here you can see your basic calculator, and then you've got to toggle back and forth between the graph and equations. You've got some reference stuff, which you will have some of access to that, and so on and so forth. Okay. So that would be my recommendation for using to get the kids some experience in an online or an electronic calculator. Now they have said that those of you that are in grades using the scientific calculator, the OGT calculator, the red ones that we've used in the past, those are what they're kind of trying to mirror it off of. This one is just a 4-function calculator. And this one was the TI calculator that we mentioned earlier. So reminder, if you go to the PARCC practice tests, so practice, so it's parcpearson.com, find the practice tests. Here are the practice tests, so test preparation. If you click on this, it'll give you down to some practice tests. And then you can click on mathematics practice tests. And then there's all the grade levels. So for example, if we wanted to see what the grade 7 looked like, we could go to grade 7, start the test nav, and it'll give you the first set of questions will be non-calculator. So during this point, the calculator option will not pop up at all. Okay? So if we start the section, you can start to see and notice that there is no calculator option up here. You have your protractor, you have your centimeter ruler, you have a pointer, and you have a answer eliminator. Now the answer eliminator I like because if the kids know that one they don't want to worry about it, they're trying to whittle down an answer, they're like maybe it's B, maybe it's D, then they can start to whittle those down. Okay. So let's skip through a bunch of these here, and like I said, these are all available on Pearson's website, but I want to show you what the calculator portion of the test would actually look like. So here now, we're going to say yes, yes. Now we're actually to the calculator portion of the test. So start the section. Here's the question, and now you'll notice up here in the top, now we've got this piece, and now the calculator pops up. And so there is the actual PARCC practice calculator. So if we look at the one that I had said before for this, pretty close in nature to what it is that we're trying to deal with here. So if we turn it this way, you can see it's pretty close, about as close as we can get it. Okay. But the kids have got to know to go up here and start using this calculator because it doesn't pop up normally. It gives you this option to have this up here. Okay. And then your centimeter rulers here also, your protractors up here is also. Okay. You also notice there's this thing over here called exhibits, and it does give some kids some answer and reference sheets. So I would recommend, if you have not yet gone through the practice tests, if you're an ELA or a math teacher, I would very much recommend that you take a look at these practice tests, so that way you know what your kids are going to be tested on. And then that way you can also start to utilize some of these pieces and parts in your normal everyday instruction. One question a day, just getting the kids ready. So it's not overwhelming for them, but they do get the idea of what's going on. Okay? So I hope that's helpful. That's the calculator snapshot for us for this week. Taking a look at those 3 calculators that can help you to mirror some of the pieces and parts that your kids will see on PARCC tests. So once again, those were Calculator Plus, Calculator X, and Free Grav Calculator. Okay. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you next week for the next Technology Snapshot.